She was a lonely old woman, but see what kindness did for her. There was a woman named BOLA. She was from a small village in the western part of Nigeria. The village of Okila was nestled between lush green hills and bordered by a crystal-clear river that provided sustenance for the villagers. Known for their vibrant festivals and rich cultural traditions, the people of Okila were hard-working farmers and skilled craftsmen. This woman got married to a man named Tunde. A man who many women wanted in the village, but luckily for her she was the person Tunde chose among the numerous women. Their wedding celebration lasted for 7 days, with drummers and dancers performing until dawn each night. The whole village contributed to their feast, bringing yams, palm wine, and freshly caught fish. Elders blessed their union under the sacred Iroko tree that had stood in the village center for generations. Tunde was very proud because of his looks, and he thought that he could get any woman he wanted any time of the day. So with this mindset, Tunde started maltreating BOLA and was also cheating on her because he knew she could go nowhere as she's tied to him by marriage forever. Thankfully, BOLA was able to bear him a child whom she named Io. The birth of Io brought temporary joy to their home, with neighbors bringing gifts and blessings. The baby girl had her mother's gentle eyes and her father's strong features. During Io's naming ceremony, an old priestess from the village predicted that the child would one day reunite what had been broken, though no one understood what this meant at the time. Immediately after she had Io, Tunde's wickedness increased. He felt that BOLA's presence in his life was stopping him from living his best life, which included spending money on things that weren't important and carrying different women of his taste in and outside the house. So he sent her packing without her new baby and threatened to kill her if she ever returned. Out of fear, BOLA never turned back. She ran away very deep into the forest and was never seen again. With only the clothes on her back and a small pouch of cowrie shells her grandmother had given her for protection, BOLA fled through the night. The forest was dense and frightening, filled with strange sounds and glowing eyes that watched from the darkness. After walking for 3 days, exhausted and hungry, she stumbled upon an abandoned hunter's hut deep in the heart of the forest. The small clearing around it allowed sunlight to filter through, and a nearby stream provided fresh water. With nowhere else to go, BOLA made this her new home. Just after BOLA was sent packing, Tunde turned his house into a den of women. He invited different kinds of women over, and sadly little Io was watching it all. The once respected compound became known throughout the village as a place of shame, but no one dared to challenge Tunde, who had connections with powerful people in neighboring towns. Io grew up without a motherly love and was always bullied by the women her father brought into their home, but Tunde neglected his daughter so much that he never even protected her from those women. Each night, Io would climb onto the roof of their mud house and look up at the stars, wondering if her mother was looking at the same sky, and if she ever thought about her daughter. She was made to do unimaginable things as a kid for them. She had to wash their inner wares, clean the house after they mess it all up, and afterwards, they will physically abuse her by beating her and starving her as well. One woman, Sade, was particularly cruel and would force Io to kneel on sharp gravel for hours if she didn't complete her chores quickly enough. Despite this harsh treatment, an elderly neighbor, Mama Kudi, would sometimes secretly bring food for Io and teach her how to read and write whenever Tunde was away on his frequent trips. Io hated her father so much and wished to run away far from him, but sadly she had no one to run to. She kept a small wooden doll hidden under a loose floorboard, the only thing she had that was connected to her mother. The doll had been carved by BOLA during her pregnancy, and Mama Kudi had managed to save it when Tunde had tried to burn all of BOLA's possessions after sending her away. For years, no one ever heard from BOLA, and her memory in the minds of people started fading away slowly. In the forest, BOLA had learned to survive on her own. She gathered wild fruits and vegetables, set traps for small animals, and even began growing a small garden of medicinal herbs. The animals of the forest became her companions, particularly a gray parrot that would visit her daily and seemed to understand her loneliness. Occasionally, Traders passing through the forest would exchange goods with her, though they never asked why a woman lived alone so deep in the wilderness. As Io grew into a beautiful girl, she began to ask about her mother, and Tunde told her that her mother had died a long time ago. He fabricated a story about Bola dying from a mysterious illness shortly after Io's birth, claiming he had been heartbroken ever since. The lie was elaborate, including details about a grave that didn't exist in the village cemetery. Tears filled her eyes, but she had to keep going. Each night, she would hold the wooden doll and whisper stories to it, pretending she was talking to the mother she never knew. The doll became her confidant, the keeper of her dreams and sorrows. Irrespective of the fact that she came from an abusive home without love, Io refused to be wayward. She was very determined to finish her school and become something great in life. She had inherited her mother's resilience and quiet strength. Even when the other children in the village taunted her about her father's reputation, she remained focused on her studies. Late at night, by the light of a small oil lamp, she would read the books that Mama Kudi brought her, dreaming of a life beyond the village. So she struggled to finish her education and finally became a nurse. She started working in their local hospital and was very helpful to the villagers. Because she was very compassionate and she did her job so well that she started attracting high-quality men that were asking for her hand in marriage. Her healing hands and gentle spirit reminded the older villagers of Bola, though few dared to mention this resemblance around Tunde, who had become increasingly bitter and isolated as he aged. Unfortunately, she turned all of them down, saying that she wasn't ready yet, because she needed to attain to a particular level in her career before getting married. But something happened one day that changed her life completely. On one cool evening, there was a little girl named F who had a little dog that wandered off into the bushes. The dog, a spotted brown and white puppy called Coco, had been a gift from her uncle who traded with people from the north. Coco was known throughout the village for his playful antics and tendency to chase after forest creatures. As F was following the trail of her dog into the bush, she suddenly got lost and couldn't find her way back home. As it was getting late, F saw a little house hidden inside the bushes. The place seemed deserted and she decided to spend the night there so that by morning she'd continue her journey back home. Meanwhile, back in the village, F's parents were looking for her, but they didn't see her and they thought that something bad had happened to her while wandering into the thick bushes. Then they set out at night to look for her with other villagers, but she was not found. So as soon as F got into the little old house in the bush, she became so scared. The door creaked as she entered and at one glance, she scanned through the whole room hoping to see if someone was around. With fear and trembling hands, she quietly laid on the bed and slept off. Then in the morning, after a long restful night, she woke up from her sleep and saw an old woman seated beside her and looking at her scarily. F shouted so loud for help, but her voice didn't go far because she was very far into the bushes. Then the old woman shushed her and prepared her a hot food to eat and regain her energy. With hunger, F quickly rushed the food and thanked the old woman. After that, F introduced herself to the woman and told her about her mission into bush and why she needs to get back to continue her search for her dog. As she was about going back, F quickly turned to bid the old woman farewell and to thank her for taking care of her. She saw tears streaming down the eyes of the old woman. Then F ran back to her and asked her why she was crying. Then the old woman sat her down and began to tell her the story of her life. How her husband Tunde had chased her away and threatened her never to return home and snatched her only daughter from her. She never got the chance to truly be a mother, rather she ended becoming a lonely old woman. F became very emotional as the old woman told her the story and she decided to help her get back to her daughter and make sure that Tunde gets the judgment he deserves. So F forgot about her dog and journeyed back to the village following Bola's, the old woman, direction. As she got to the village, she quickly ran home and found her parents crying. Then she told her parents that she was fine and also told them all the stories that Bola told her. Her parents then joined her in searching for her daughter Io. Few days after a long search, they found Io and told her all her mother Bola said. but Io told them that her mother was long dead. But F's parents convinced her to follow them to the bushes to be sure if her mother was truly dead or alive. So Io left home without informing her wicked father, who was fast asleep. As soon as they approached the little house that belonged to BOLA, Io's heart raced, hoping that she finds her mother. When they got there, as soon as BOLA saw her daughter, who was now a full-grown adult, she was in uncontrollable tears for hours. She cried because she had missed important parts of her daughter's life and felt like a stranger to her own daughter. She recognized Io immediately. She had the same birthmark on her wrist, a small crescent moon shape that BOLA used to say was a sign that her daughter would always find her way home, no matter how far she traveled. Seeing that Io was a striking image of her mother, there was no doubt anymore that BOLA was dead, so they hugged each other while crying in each other's arms. As they embraced, the grey parrot that had been BOLA's companion for years circled above them, as if celebrating the reunion. Io pulled out the wooden doll she had carried with her, and BOLA gasped, recognizing the handiwork she had created with such love before her daughter's birth. After hours of crying and hugging, BOLA, Io, F and her parents hatched a plan ready to expose the wickedness of Tunde and bring his wickedness and maltreatment to an end. They knew that simply confronting him wouldn't be enough. They needed the entire village to witness his shame and understand the depth of his cruelty. So after they were done, they decided to march back to the village together. Io was holding her mother and didn't want to leave her sight. When they got to the village, few villagers that could remember BOLA starting running towards her like they had seen a ghost come into town. They were so happy to see her after all these years. Old Mama Kudi fell to her knees in disbelief, thanking the ancestors for bringing back the woman everyone had thought was long dead. When they heard about everything that Tunde did to BOLA, the villagers were moved to compassion and they all marched to his house. The village chief, who had always had doubts about Tunde's story of BOLA's death, led the procession. Even the village drummer joined, beating out a rhythm that called for justice and truth, a special pattern used only when grave wrongdoings needed to be addressed by the community. As soon as the crowd approached Tunde's house, they started shouting, and immediately Tunde came out of this room. He was in so much shock when he set his eyes on BOLA holding her daughter Io. The color drained from his face, and for a moment, the villagers thought he might collapse. The years had not been kind to Tunde. His once handsome face was now lined with wrinkles born of bitterness, and his proud stature had been bent by the weight of his own cruelty. Now he was so powerless and couldn't utter a word. Instead, tears filled his eyes, and he knew that he had treated a good woman badly and she didn't deserve any of those treatments from the past. He tried to apologize to her, but BOLA was so angry that she couldn't even stand to hear his voice. He then pleaded with the villagers to beg her on his behalf to return back to him. The people mocked him because he was a selfish old man that only needed a stable woman to take care of him in his old age. BOLA forgave him, but refused to go back to him. Then good villagers decided to build a small house for BOLA and her daughter Io to live in away from that treacherous beast Tunde. The new house was built on the east side of the village, near the stream where women gathered to wash clothes. It had solid walls of red clay, a thatched roof, and windows that let in the golden light of dawn each morning. The entire village contributed to furnishing it. One family provided a wooden bed, another wove colorful mats for the floor, and others brought cooking pots, tools, and everything the women would need to start their new life together. Tunde lived the rest of his life in poverty, loneliness, and pain due to his wicked and wasteful lifestyle in his youthful age. His former friends abandoned him, and the women who had once flocked to his house disappeared when his money ran out. His compound fell into disrepair, with weeds growing tall in what had once been a well-kept yard. Children would whisper stories about the mean old man who lived alone in the crumbling house, creating frightening tales about his wicked deeds. He never valued the presence of a good woman in his life because of pride and arrogance due to the fact that he was very handsome and good-looking in his young age. He allowed people's praises to get into his head, and that made him treat his beautiful wife badly. Now BOLA finally spent her remaining days with her daughter Io, who later got married to a very wealthy man, and they had a beautiful family together. Io's husband, Deo, was a merchant who traded in fine fabrics and had traveled extensively. He was kind-hearted and respectful, treating BOLA as his own mother. They built a larger home where all 3 generations lived together, and BOLA finally experienced the joy of being a grandmother to Io's 3 children. They loved hearing stories about their grandmother's survival in the forest and the grey parrot that had been her friend during those lonely years. At least, BOLA was finally opportune to spend her last days with her daughter, and she was forever thankful to F and her parents for reuniting her with her daughter after all these years. On BOLA's 80th birthday, the entire village held a celebration in her honor, recognizing her as an example of resilience and forgiveness. F, now grown with children of her own, remained close to the family, and her dog Coco's descendants still played in the compound with Io's children. The moral of this story is that no matter how bad life treats us, we should be good to everyone around us because we may not know where our help will come from tomorrow. Young F had no idea that by showing kindness to an old woman in the forest, she would become the instrument that healed a broken family and changed the course of many lives for the better. And also, we should never let people's praises get control of our mind, because that can lead to pride and arrogance, and you know what God said about the proud: He will resist the proud. Tunde's downfall came from believing that his handsome face and charm gave him the right to mistreat others, especially the woman who had loved him truly. So, let's make sure that in everything we do, let us treat people around us with love and kindness no matter where they are coming from. For in the end, it is not our wealth or beauty that will be remembered, but rather the love we have shown and the lives we have touched with kindness. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe, like, share and comment below. That serves as an encouragement to me. Thank you.